The moment Amelia Lawson walked into the hospital room and saw Preston Zimmerman staring at her with complete confusion in his eyes, she knew the doctor's warning had been devastatingly accurate. The man she'd spent 3 years building a life with, the man who proposed to her just 2 months ago, didn't recognize her face. "I'm sorry," Preston said, his voice hoarse from the accident. "Do I know you?" The question shattered something inside Amelia's chest. She stood frozen in the doorway, her hands trembling as they clutched the flowers she'd brought. Yellow roses. His favorite. Or at least they used to be his favorite. Dr. Chen stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Amelia's shoulder. "Miss Lawson, perhaps we should talk outside first." But Amelia couldn't move. She stared at the man in the hospital bed, at the bandages wrapped around his head, at the confusion etched across features she knew better than her own. Preston looked exactly the same, yet completely different. He was looking at her like she was a stranger. "Please," Amelia whispered, her voice breaking. "Preston, it's me. It's Amelia." Preston's brow furrowed as he searched her face, clearly trying to find some spark of recognition. "I'm really sorry. I don't remember. The doctors said I might have some memory loss, but I didn't think." He trailed off, clearly uncomfortable with her distress. Dr. Chen guided Amelia firmly out of the room. Once they were in the hallway, the doctor's expression turned sympathetic but serious. "The traumatic brain injury from the car accident has caused significant retrograde amnesia. Mr. Zimmerman appears to have lost approximately the last 4 years of his memories." 4 years. Amelia felt the world tilt beneath her feet. "But we've been together for 3 years. He doesn't remember any of it." "I'm afraid not. His last clear memory is from when he was 26, before he started his real estate development company. He knows who he is in a general sense, but specific events and people from the past 4 years are gone." Amelia pressed her back against the cool hospital wall, trying to process this information. Will he remember, eventually? Sometimes these memories return, sometimes they don't. There's no way to know for certain. Forcing the memories or overwhelming him with information from the past won't help. In fact, it could make things worse. He needs to heal naturally. "So what am I supposed to do?" Amelia's voice cracked. "Just pretend I'm a stranger, watch him not know me." Dr. Chen's expression softened. "I know this is incredibly difficult, but for now the best thing you can do is be patient. Let him set the pace. If he wants to know about his past, he'll ask." Amelia nodded numbly, though everything inside her was screaming. She looked back at the door to Preston's room, where the man she loved lay confused and injured, with no memory of the life they'd built together. The next few days were torture. Amelia visited the hospital daily, but she kept her distance, introducing herself simply as a friend. Preston was polite but distant, still clearly trying to piece together his life. His business partner, Marcus, filled him in on the company, on the deals they'd made, the buildings they'd developed. Preston absorbed it all with the same intense focus Amelia remembered, taking notes, asking questions, rebuilding his professional identity. But when Amelia tried to share small details about their relationship, Preston would grow uncomfortable. It wasn't that he didn't believe her. It was that he clearly felt nothing when he looked at her. No spark, no connection, just polite acknowledgement of facts he couldn't verify. A week after the accident, Preston was released from the hospital. Amelia helped Marcus coordinate getting Preston settled back in his penthouse apartment, though every corner of the space held memories that only she could recall. The kitchen where they'd cooked breakfast together on Sunday mornings. The balcony where he'd proposed with the city lights twinkling below them. The bedroom where they'd shared countless intimate moments. Now Preston walked through his own home like a museum, examining everything with curiosity but no recognition. I'm going to stay in the guest room for a while, Preston announced, standing in the doorway of the master bedroom. This feels too personal. Too much like I'm invading someone else's space. It's your space, Amelia said softly. You picked out everything in here. Maybe I did, Preston agreed, but I don't remember doing it. That makes it feel like it belongs to a stranger. Marcus had to return to managing the company full-time, which left Amelia as Preston's primary support system. She took a leave of absence from her job as a landscape architect to help him navigate his recovery. Preston seemed grateful for the help, but there was a formality to their interactions that broke her heart daily. You don't have to do all this, Preston said one morning as Amelia prepared breakfast. I know Marcus said we were together, but I don't want you to feel obligated. I'm not obligated, Amelia replied, focusing on the eggs so he wouldn't see the pain in her eyes. I care about you. You care about who I was, Preston corrected gently. But that person is gone. I'm sorry, Amelia. I can see this is hard for you, but I don't know you. I don't feel what you feel. The honesty stung, but Amelia appreciated it. At least he wasn't pretending. I understand. Do you? Preston leaned against the counter, studying her. Because you look at me like you're mourning someone who died, but I'm right here. I'm just different now. Amelia set down the spatula and finally met his gaze. You're not different. You're just missing pieces. And I know you're in there somewhere, Preston. The man who loved terrible action movies and couldn't sing to save his life but tried anyway. The man who volunteered at the youth center every Thursday because he believed in giving back. The man who brought me coffee in bed every morning because he knew I was useless before caffeine. Something flickered in Preston's eyes. Not recognition, but curiosity. Tell me about him, about us. So Amelia did. She told him about how they met at a charity gala 3 years ago, where she'd been hired to design the outdoor garden space for the venue. Preston had been there as a donor, bored by the formal atmosphere until he'd wandered outside and found her adjusting the lighting on the floral displays. You asked me if flowers could really be worth all this effort, Amelia said, a sad smile touching her lips. I told you that beauty was always worth effort. You said that was the most interesting thing anyone had said to you all night. Preston listened intently, absorbing every detail. And then what? Then you asked for my number. You called me 3 days later and took me to this tiny Italian restaurant in Brooklyn that you swore had the best pasta in the city. You were right. We talked for 4 hours. You told me about your dreams of developing sustainable housing, creating communities instead of just buildings. I told you about my dream of bringing more green spaces to the city. We both wanted to make New York more livable, just in different ways. Did we work together? Preston asked. Eventually. About a year into our relationship, you asked me to consult on one of your residential developments. I designed rooftop gardens and communal green spaces. It was the first of several projects we collaborated on. Preston was quiet for a long moment. It sounds like we had something real. We did, Amelia whispered. We do, but Preston shook his head. You did, with the person I was. But I don't feel that connection, Amelia. I look at you and I see an attractive, kind woman who clearly cares deeply about me, but there's no spark, no pull. I'm sorry. The rejection, even delivered gently, cut deep. Amelia nodded, blinking back tears. I should go. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Amelia grabbed her jacket and purse. I think we both need some space. You need to figure out who you are now, and I need to accept that the man I loved might not come back. Amelia left before Preston could respond, before she could break down completely in front of him. She made it to her car before the tears came, sitting in the parking garage of his building and sobbing until she had nothing left. 3 weeks passed. Amelia threw herself into work, taking on extra projects to keep her mind occupied. She avoided Preston's calls at first, needing distance to heal. But eventually, curiosity got the better of her and she answered. "Hi," Preston's voice was tentative. "I wasn't sure you'd pick up." "Hi," Amelia replied, her heart racing at the sound of his voice. "I wanted to apologize for being insensitive. Marcus told me I had a habit of being too blunt, of not considering how my words affected people. Apparently, that's one trait that survived the accident." Despite everything, Amelia found herself smiling. "You were always direct. I actually appreciated it most of the time. No games, no confusion about where you stood. I've been thinking a lot about what you told me, about who I was, who we were together." Preston paused. "Would you be willing to meet me for coffee, just to talk?" Amelia hesitated. Seeing him again would hurt, but staying away hurt too. "Okay, when?" "Tomorrow. There's a cafe in Chelsea that Marcus says I used to go to all the time. The Brew House. I know it. They'd gone there together countless times. It was where Preston would take her when he needed to brainstorm ideas, where she'd sketch garden designs on napkins while he analyzed property reports. 1 o'clock. I'll be there." Amelia spent the next day alternating between excitement and dread. She changed outfits 3 times before settling on simple jeans and a green sweater that Preston had once said brought out her eyes. Then she felt foolish for trying to impress a man who didn't remember her, and changed into something more neutral. She arrived at the brew house 5 minutes early and found Preston already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. He stood when he saw her, a gesture that was pure Preston, all manners and old-fashioned courtesy. "I ordered you a vanilla latte," Preston said. "Marcus said it was your usual. I hope that's still right." "It's perfect," Amelia said, touched that he'd thought to ask Marcus. They sat, and for a moment, awkwardness hung between them. Then Preston spoke. "I've been going through my apartment, looking at photos, reading old emails and texts, trying to piece together my life, our life." He pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. It was a photo of them from last Christmas, bundled in winter coats, standing in front of Rockefeller Center's Christmas tree. They were laughing, Preston's arm around her waist, her head tilted toward his shoulder. "We looked happy," Preston said quietly. "We were," Amelia confirmed. "I want to know more, but I don't want to just hear stories and look at pictures. I want to understand who I was by experiencing the things I experienced. Does that make sense?" "I think so." "What do you mean?" Preston leaned forward. "Show me our life. Take me to the places we went, do the things we did. Help me understand the person I was and why he loved you." Amelia's breath caught. "Preston, I don't think that's a good idea. It would be too painful for me to recreate our relationship like it's some kind of historical reenactment." "I'm not asking you to pretend we're still together," Preston said quickly. "I'm just asking you to help me understand." "Please, Amelia. Everyone else tells me facts and figures about my business, about my investments and properties. But you're the only one who knew me as a person, the only one who can show me who I really was." There was genuine pleading in his eyes, a vulnerability that reminded her so much of the Preston she knew. He'd never been good at asking for help, at admitting he needed someone. The fact that he was doing it now meant this mattered to him. "Okay," Amelia found herself saying. "But we do this my way. I'm not going to force anything or try to make you remember. I'm just going to show you pieces of your life, our life. What you do with that information is up to you." Relief washed over Preston's face. "Thank you." They started small. Amelia took Preston to the youth center in Brooklyn where he'd volunteered every Thursday evening. The center provided after-school programs for underprivileged kids, offering tutoring, sports, and mentorship. The director, a woman named Sandra, nearly cried when she saw Preston. "We've missed you," Sandra said, pulling Preston into a hug that he awkwardly returned. "The kids have been asking about you constantly. How are you feeling?" "Better," Preston said. "Though I have to confess I don't remember working here." Sandra's face fell. "Marcus told us about the accident, but I didn't realize the memory loss was that extensive." She turned to Amelia. "He doesn't remember. We're working on it," Amelia said diplomatically. Sandra led them through the center, showing Preston the basketball court he'd helped fund, the computer lab he'd equipped with new technology, the library where he'd spent countless hours helping kids with homework. Preston took it all in silently, asking occasional questions but mostly just observing. A teenage boy approached them, maybe 15 years old, tall and gangly with a guarded expression. "Mr. Z, is it really you?" Preston looked uncertain. "I'm Preston, yes. But I'm sorry, I don't remember your name." The boy's face fell. "It's Jamal. You've been helping me with college applications. We were working on my essay about overcoming adversity." Preston looked stricken. "I'm sorry, I was in an accident. I don't remember a lot of things right now." Jamal's expression shifted from hurt to concern. "Are you okay? Are you going to be okay?" "I'm getting there," Preston assured him. "Tell me about the college applications. Where are you hoping to go?" Jamal's face lit up, and he launched into an enthusiastic explanation of his dreams of studying engineering. Preston listened with genuine interest, asking questions, offering encouragement. Amelia watched him interact with Jamal and saw glimpses of the man she loved. The way he focused completely on what Jamal was saying, the way he asked thoughtful questions, the way he encouraged without being condescending. When they left the center an hour later, Preston was quiet. They walked several blocks before he spoke. "I could feel it," he said softly. "When that kid was talking to me, when Sandra was showing me around. I couldn't remember anything specific, but it felt right, like that's where I belonged." "You loved it there," Amelia said. "You told me once that volunteering at the youth center kept you grounded. Reminded you that success wasn't just about building wealth, but about building opportunities for others." Preston stopped walking and turned to face her. "Who was I, Amelia? Really? Because everyone keeps telling me I'm this successful real estate developer, this self-made millionaire. But that kid in there knew a different person, a better person." "You were both," Amelia said. "You worked hard and built something impressive, but you never forgot where you came from or what mattered. Your parents weren't wealthy. Your dad worked construction, your mom was a teacher. They taught you the value of hard work and giving back. You never lost that, even when you started making serious money." Preston absorbed this, then started walking again. "What else? What else did I care about?" Over the next few weeks, Amelia became Preston's guide to his own life. She took him to the construction site of his latest residential development, where workers greeted him warmly and showed him the progress they'd made. She took him to his favorite terrible action movie theater in Queens, where they sat through an absurdly over-the-top film that made Preston laugh despite himself. "This is genuinely awful," Preston said as they left the theater. "You loved awful action movies," Amelia said, grinning. "The worse, the better. You said they were pure escapism, that sometimes you needed to watch things blow up without thinking too deeply about plot or character development." "That actually makes sense," Preston admitted, "though I'm slightly embarrassed by my own taste." "Don't be." It was endearing. They fell into an easy rhythm, meeting several times a week. Preston was always punctual, always prepared with questions about his past. But gradually, Amelia noticed a shift. He started asking fewer questions about who he'd been and more questions about her. What did she like? What were her dreams? What made her laugh? "You're changing the subject," Amelia said one afternoon as they walked through Central Park, ostensibly to visit one of her landscape designs. Am I? Preston looked genuinely curious. We're supposed to be reconstructing your memories, not getting to know each other as strangers. Maybe that's exactly what we need to do, Preston said. He stopped walking and turned to face her. I've spent weeks trying to remember who I was, trying to force myself to feel things I don't feel. But maybe that's the wrong approach. Maybe I need to start fresh, figure out who I am now. And where do I fit into that? Amelia asked, her heart racing. Preston was quiet for a moment. I don't know yet, but I know that I enjoy spending time with you. Not because of some shared history I can't remember, but because of who you are right now. You're intelligent, passionate about your work, funny in this dry, unexpected way. You see beauty in things other people overlook. You make me think about the world differently. Amelia felt tears prick her eyes. Preston. I'm not saying I'm falling in love with you, Preston said quickly. I'm not ready for that, and I don't know if I ever will be. But I like you, Amelia. The person you are now, not just the person you were to me before. Is that enough? It wasn't what Amelia had hoped for. It wasn't Preston remembering their love, wasn't him declaring that his feelings had returned. But it was something. It was real and honest and entirely Preston in its directness. It's enough, Amelia said. For now, it's enough. They continued their meetings, but the dynamic shifted. Instead of tours through Preston's past, they started creating new experiences. Preston took Amelia to a new restaurant that just opened, somewhere they'd never been together before. Amelia invited Preston to help her with a community garden project in Harlem, letting him get his hands dirty planting vegetables alongside neighborhood volunteers. I'm terrible at this, Preston said, struggling to properly space seedlings. You're doing fine, Amelia laughed, correcting his spacing. Gardening isn't about perfection. It's about patience and paying attention to what things need to grow. Is that a metaphor? Preston asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. Maybe, Amelia admitted, but it's also just true. Preston looked at her, dirt smudged on his cheek, his expensive clothes completely inappropriate for gardening. I think I'm starting to understand why the old me fell for you. Amelia's breath caught. Yeah, you see potential in everything. Dead spaces become gardens. Troubled kids become engineers. Even someone with a scrambled brain becomes a worthwhile project. You're not a project, Amelia said firmly. You're a person, and you were worth knowing before the accident and after it. Something shifted in Preston's expression, something warm and uncertain and hopeful. He leaned closer, and for a moment, Amelia thought he might kiss her. But then a volunteer called out for help with the irrigation system, and the moment passed. 2 months after the accident, Preston's company landed a major deal for a waterfront development. It was a project he'd been working on for over a year, according to Marcus, and the final contracts were ready to sign. Preston invited Amelia to the celebration dinner with his business team. Are you sure? Amelia asked. That's your professional life. I don't want to intrude. You're not intruding. I want you there. Preston paused. Besides, Marcus says you consulted on the green space design for the project. Your work is part of this deal too. The celebration was at an upscale restaurant in Manhattan, the kind of place with a dress code and a wine list thicker than most books. Amelia wore a navy dress she'd bought specifically for these kinds of events, back when she regularly attended business dinners with Preston. Preston's reaction when he saw her made the effort worthwhile. His eyes widened and he stared for a moment before catching himself. You look beautiful. Thank you, Amelia said, feeling herself blush. You clean up pretty well yourself. Preston wore a tailored charcoal suit that fit him perfectly, making him look every inch the successful millionaire he was. But when he smiled at her, uncertain and genuinely pleased to see her, he was just Preston. The man she was slowly, carefully, falling for all over again. The dinner was lively, full of toasts and congratulations. Marcus gave a speech about Preston's vision and determination, carefully avoiding any mention of the accident or memory loss. Preston responded with his own toast, thanking the team and acknowledging that he might not remember every step of the journey to this deal, but he was proud of what they'd accomplished together. Afterward, Preston asked if Amelia wanted to walk for a bit before heading home. They ended up at the Brooklyn Bridge looking out at the Manhattan skyline. "I proposed to you, didn't I?" Preston asked suddenly. Amelia froze. "What? I found the ring in my apartment in a drawer in the bedroom." Preston pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "This is it, right?" Amelia stared at the box, her vision blurring with tears. "Yes." Preston opened it, revealing the ring inside. It was a simple design, elegant and understated, exactly what Amelia had always wanted. He designed it with her in mind, choosing a small but flawless diamond set in platinum with tiny emeralds on the band to represent her love of nature. "Marcus said I proposed 2 months before the accident, that we were planning a wedding for next spring." Preston studied the ring, then looked at Amelia. "Were you happy?" "When I asked, happier than I'd ever been," Amelia whispered. Preston was quiet for a long moment. "I can't give that back to you. The proposal, the memories of that moment, I'm sorry." "I know," Amelia said, wiping at her tears. "But I can tell you this." Preston closed the box and held it carefully. "The man I was had excellent taste. If I were going to propose to anyone, you'd be a pretty incredible choice." Amelia laughed through her tears. "That might be the most Preston Zimmerman compliment I've ever received." "Is that good or bad?" "It's perfectly you." Preston reached out and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. The touch was electric, sending shivers through Amelia's body. Preston must have felt it too, because his hand lingered, cupping her face gently. "I want to kiss you," Preston said quietly. "But I don't want to hurt you. I don't want you to think I'm the person I was, that everything's back to normal, because it's not." "I know," Amelia said. "But maybe normal doesn't matter. Maybe we get to define what this is for ourselves." Preston smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. Then he leaned in and kissed her. It was different from the kisses Amelia remembered. More tentative, more exploratory, as if Preston was discovering her for the first time. But it was also achingly familiar, the way he held her, the way he breathed against her lips. Some things, apparently, transcended memory. When they pulled apart, Preston rested his forehead against hers. "I need to be honest with you." "Okay," Amelia said, bracing herself. "I don't remember loving you. I don't remember our relationship or the proposal or any of the moments we shared. But I'm falling for you anyway. The person you are now. The woman who showed me patience when I had none for myself, who helped me understand my own life without judgment, who makes me want to be better just by being around her." Preston pulled back slightly to look into her eyes. "I'm falling in love with you, Amelia. Not the memory of you, but the real present you. Is that okay?" Amelia felt like her heart might burst. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, it's more than okay." They kissed again, longer this time, deeper. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathless and smiling. "So what happens now?" Preston asked. "Now we figure it out together," Amelia said. "No pressure to remember the past, no trying to recreate what we had. We just move forward and see where this goes." "I like that plan," Preston said. He took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "Though I should warn you, I'm apparently pretty serious about commitment. The ring suggests I don't do things halfway." Amelia laughed. "I'm aware. You proposed after 1.5 years of dating. Marcus thought you were crazy, but you told him when you knew, you knew." "Smart man, the old me," Preston said. Then, more seriously, "I'm not ready to propose again. Not yet. I need time to be sure this is real, that it's not just me trying to reclaim something I lost." "I understand," Amelia said, and she did. As much as she wanted to fast forward to the happily ever after, she knew they both needed time to build something authentic. The next several months were a study in patience and discovery. Preston and Amelia dated like any new couple, learning each other's rhythms and preferences. There were awkward moments, times when Amelia would reference something from their past and Preston would look blank. There were frustrating moments when Preston struggled with the gaps in his memory, feeling like he was living someone else's life. But there were also beautiful moments. The first time Preston cooked dinner for Amelia, attempting a pasta recipe he'd apparently made before but couldn't remember. It turned out terribly, and they ended up ordering pizza and laughing about his culinary disaster. The weekend they spent at a bed and breakfast in the Catskills, where Preston admitted he'd never felt more relaxed in his life that he could remember. The evening, Amelia invited Preston to her apartment for the first time since the accident, and he looked around at her space with genuine curiosity, asking about the photos on her walls, the books on her shelves, the half-finished garden plans spread across her dining table. "This is where you create," Preston observed, studying a detailed sketch of a rooftop garden design. "This is where I think," Amelia corrected. "Creation happens in the actual space with the soil and plants and weather. This is just planning." Preston wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder as he looked at her work. "It's beautiful. You're talented," says the man who built half of Brooklyn's newest residential developments. "That's different. I deal in concrete and steel. You deal in living things. Things that grow and change." "Buildings grow and change too," Amelia said. "They become homes, communities. You told me once that architecture was about creating spaces for life to happen. That always stuck with me." Preston turned her around to face him. "I said something smart occasionally." "More than occasionally," Amelia said, smiling. "You had this whole philosophy about development being a responsibility, not just a business. About how the buildings you created would outlast you, so they needed to add value to the world, not just your bank account." "I like the sound of that guy," Preston said. "You are that guy," Amelia insisted. "The accident didn't change who you are fundamentally, it just took away some memories." Preston kissed her forehead. "Sometimes I wish I could remember. Not just for myself, but so I could understand what made us work the first time." "We work now," Amelia said simply. "Isn't that enough?" "More than enough," Preston agreed. 6 months after the accident, Preston took Amelia back to the youth center. Jamal had applied to 6 universities and gotten accepted to 4, including his top choice, a prestigious engineering program with a full scholarship. Sandra organized a small celebration, inviting all the kids Jamal had grown up with at the center. Preston arrived early to help set up, and Amelia found him in the computer lab, talking to a small group of younger kids about career paths. "The important thing is to figure out what problems you want to solve," Preston was saying. "Money follows passion more often than you'd think. If you're good at what you do and you care about doing it well, opportunities appear." One of the kids, a girl maybe 12 years old, raised her hand. "Mr. Z, is it true you don't remember us from before?" Preston didn't flinch from the question. "It's true. I had an accident that affected my memory. But that doesn't mean I don't care about what happens here. Sandra's filled me in on all the amazing things you kids are doing. I might not remember the past, but I'm excited about your futures." The girl considered this. "My mom says memory isn't everything. She says character is what you do, not what you remember doing." Preston smiled. "Your mom sounds wise. Watching him interact with the kids, seeing how naturally he fit into this environment, Amelia felt overwhelmingly grateful. The accident had taken so much from them, but it hadn't taken the core of who Preston was. He was still kind, still driven by a desire to help others succeed, still capable of connecting with people in meaningful ways. During the celebration, Jamal gave a short speech thanking everyone who had helped him. When he got to Preston, he paused. "Mr. Z, I know you don't remember all the hours you spent helping me, but I remember. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You told me that where I came from didn't determine where I could go. That stuck with me. Whatever you remember or don't remember, you changed my life. Thank you." Preston's eyes were bright with emotion as Jamal finished. After the celebration, as they were leaving, Preston was unusually quiet. "You okay?" Amelia asked. "I was just thinking," Preston said slowly. "I've spent months worrying about what I lost, but maybe I've been looking at it wrong. Maybe the measure of a life isn't what you remember but what impact you have. That kid's going to college. He's going to do amazing things. Whether I remember helping him or not doesn't change that I did help him, that I made a difference." "You made a huge difference," Amelia confirmed. "You still do." Preston stopped walking and pulled Amelia close. "I couldn't have gotten here without you. You know that, right? You helped me find myself when I was completely lost." "You would have figured it out," Amelia said. "Maybe," Preston allowed, "but it would have taken longer and been a lot less enjoyable." He kissed her softly. "I love you, Amelia. I know I've said it before, but I need you to hear it again. I love who you are. I love how patient you've been with me. I love that you helped me without trying to make me into someone I wasn't." "I love you too," Amelia said. "I never stopped, even when you didn't remember me." They stood there in the Brooklyn evening, holding each other, and for the first time since the accident, Amelia felt completely at peace. This wasn't the relationship they'd had before. It was something new, something they'd built together from scratch, and maybe that was even better. 8 months after the accident, on a Saturday morning, Amelia woke up to find Preston already awake, propped up on one elbow watching her. "That's not creepy at all," Amelia mumbled, still half asleep. "I had a dream," Preston said quietly. Something in his voice made Amelia wake up fully. "What kind of dream? About us? About proposing to you?" Preston's expression was intense, uncertain. "We were on a bridge looking at the city. I had a ring. You were crying. Happy crying." Amelia's heart stuttered. "The Brooklyn Bridge, that's where you proposed." "I know. I mean, I knew that intellectually. You told me, but this was different. I could feel it. The nervousness, the certainty, the overwhelming sense that I was making the best decision of my life." Preston touched her face gently. "I don't know if it was a real memory or just my brain filling in gaps based on what I've been told, but it felt real." "Does it matter?" Amelia asked softly. "Real memory or reconstruction?" "No," Preston said after a moment. "You're right. It doesn't matter." He sat up fully, reaching for his nightstand drawer. When he turned back, he was holding the ring box. "I've been carrying this around for weeks, trying to figure out the right time, the perfect moment. But I'm starting to think there's no such thing as perfect. There's just real and honest." Amelia sat up too, her heart racing. "Preston, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that 8 months ago I woke up not knowing you, not knowing myself. And you helped me find my way back to something real, not the past but a future. You loved me when I couldn't remember why you should. You were patient when I was confused and frustrated. You showed me who I was by helping me figure out who I wanted to be." Preston opened the ring box. "Amelia Lawson, I can't promise I'll ever remember our first engagement, but I can promise that this one is real. This one is me, knowing exactly who you are and loving every part of you. Will you marry me?" Again, tears streamed down Amelia's face as she nodded. Yes. Yes, absolutely yes. Preston slid the ring onto her finger where it belonged, where it had always belonged. Then he pulled her close and kissed her, deep and long and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, Amelia was laughing and crying simultaneously. "We're engaged. Again." "Twice in one lifetime," Preston said, grinning. "That's got to be some kind of record." "Only you would propose twice to the same woman," Amelia teased. "Well, the first time apparently went pretty well, so I figured I'd stick with what works." Preston grew more serious. "Thank you for giving me a second chance, for not giving up on us." "Thank you for falling for me twice," Amelia replied. "Not many women can say they're so irresistible their fiancé fell for them even without memories." They spent the rest of the morning in bed, making plans and dreaming about their future. Preston insisted they needed to tell Marcus immediately, and Amelia wanted to call her sister. But for a while, they just stayed wrapped up in each other, savoring the moment. Later, at brunch with Marcus to share the news, Preston's business partner looked both thrilled and relieved. "Thank God," Marcus said. "I was starting to worry you'd completely changed personalities and would never get around to proposing again." "I almost didn't," Preston admitted. "I kept thinking I needed to remember the first proposal to make the second one special enough." "And what changed your mind?" Marcus asked. Preston looked at Amelia, his expression soft. "I realized that trying to recreate the past was pointless. This proposal needed to be about who we are now, not who we were, and who we are now is pretty great." "Cheesy, but I'll allow it," Marcus said, raising his glass. "To the happy couple. Again." They toasted, and Amelia felt a wave of gratitude for Marcus. He'd been there through everything, helping Preston navigate his business while dealing with memory loss, supporting Amelia when she needed someone who understood the complexity of the situation. "We want you to be the best man," Preston said. "Again, apparently." "I'm honored," Marcus said. "Though this time, I'm not writing my speech drunk at 3 in the morning the night before, so it'll probably be better." "You did that?" Preston asked, horrified. "You don't remember, so I'm not admitting to anything," Marcus said with a grin. The wedding planning process was surreal and wonderful. Amelia had kept some of the notes from their first wedding plans, but they decided to start fresh. New venue, new date, new vision. This was about celebrating who they were now, not trying to recreate something Preston couldn't remember. They chose a rooftop garden venue in Manhattan, one that Amelia had designed herself years ago. It overlooked the city, with views of both the Brooklyn Bridge and the Statue of Liberty. The ceremony would be intimate, just close friends and family, with the youth center kids as special guests. "I want them there," Preston insisted. "They're part of my life now, part of our life." Planning the wedding brought up occasional moments of weirdness. Amelia's mother kept referencing the first engagement party, making comments about how certain relatives had behaved, and Amelia had to keep gently redirecting the conversation. Preston's parents, whom he remembered perfectly fine since they'd been part of his life before the memory gap, were cautiously optimistic about the wedding. "I just want to make sure you're not rushing into this because you feel obligated," Preston's mother, Deanna, said during a dinner at their house in New Jersey. "I'm not," Preston assured her. "I love her. Not because I'm supposed to, not because I did before, but because she's an incredible woman and I can't imagine my life without her." Deanna studied her son, then nodded. "You're different than you were. Before the accident, you were more guarded, more focused on work. You're softer now. More present." "Is that good or bad?" Preston asked. "It's good," Deanna said firmly. "Very good. I like who you've become. And I'm glad Amelia was there to help you find your way." The months leading up to the wedding were busy but happy. Preston's company continued to thrive, with several new projects launching. Amelia was commissioned to design green spaces for 3 of those developments, turning their professional collaboration into a true partnership. They bought a house together in Park Slope, a brownstone with a backyard that Amelia immediately began transforming into a garden oasis. "I'm going to be surrounded by plants forever, aren't I?" Preston asked, watching Amelia sketch plans for raised beds and a pergola. "You love it," Amelia said confidently. "I do," Preston admitted. "I really do." One evening, about 2 weeks before the wedding, Preston came home from work looking troubled. Amelia was in the garden planting herbs and looked up when she heard him. "Bad day?" she asked. "Confusing day," Preston corrected. He sat down on the back steps, loosening his tie. "I was at the construction site for the waterfront development, the one we celebrated closing the deal on. And I was looking at the space you designed for the communal gardens, and for a moment I remembered something." Amelia's hands stilled in the dirt. "What did you remember?" "You were there. At the site. It was winter, cold, and you were wearing this ridiculous purple hat with ear flaps. You were explaining your vision for the space, how the gardens would create community, give residents a reason to interact. And I remember thinking that you were the most passionate, beautiful person I'd ever met." Preston looked up at her, his expression wondering. It was so clear, so real. "I could feel the cold air, smell your perfume, hear the excitement in your voice." "That was almost 2 years ago," Amelia said softly. "We'd been together about 8 months. You surprised me by asking me to consult on the project." "I remember," Preston said, and then seemed to realize what he'd said. "I actually remember." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of this development settling over them. Finally, Amelia spoke. "Does this change things?" "What? No." Preston stood and came to where she was kneeling in the garden, crouching beside her. "Amelia, even if every memory came back tomorrow, it wouldn't change how I feel about you. The person I fell in love with these past months is real. What we have is real. A memory of a moment 2 years ago doesn't diminish that." "But it means there might be more," Amelia said. "More memories coming back." "Maybe," Preston allowed. "Dr. Chen said it was possible, but whether they come back or not, you're still the woman I want to marry. The woman I choose to build a life with." Amelia threw her arms around him, not caring that her hands were covered in dirt. Preston held her tight, and she felt the tears come. Happy tears this time. "I'm so glad I get to marry you," she whispered. "The feeling is entirely mutual," Preston replied. Over the next 2 weeks, Preston had several more flashes of memory. Nothing major, just moments. The night they first said, "I love you." A vacation they'd taken to Maine. A fight they'd had about work-life balance that had ended with both of them apologizing and promising to do better. Each memory was precious, but Preston was right. They didn't change the present. They just added depth to it. The wedding day dawned clear and warm, perfect June weather. Amelia got ready with her sister and best friend in the bridal suite of the venue, feeling both nervous and blissfully happy. "You look beautiful," her sister Rachel said, adjusting the simple white dress Amelia had chosen. It was elegant and understated, with a flowing skirt and delicate lace sleeves. "I feel beautiful," Amelia admitted. "Is that allowed, to feel this good? After everything you've been through?" "Absolutely," Rachel said firmly. "You and Preston earned this happiness." The ceremony was everything Amelia had hoped for. Preston stood under an arch covered in climbing roses and jasmine, looking devastatingly handsome in a navy suit. His eyes never left her as she walked down the makeshift aisle, and she could see the love and certainty in his expression. Marcus officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for this purpose. His speech was heartfelt and funny, telling the story of Preston and Amelia's relationship with honesty about the challenges they'd faced. "Most love stories are straightforward," Marcus said. "Boy meets girl, they fall in love, they get married. But Preston and Amelia's story is different. They fell in love twice. The second time, Preston had no memories of their past, no reason to love Amelia except for who she was in that present moment. And that's what makes this so special. Preston chose Amelia not because of history or obligation, but because she's an incredible person who makes his life better in every possible way. And Amelia chose Preston even when he didn't remember her, showing a kind of faith and love that most of us can only aspire to. When it was time for vows, Preston went first. He held both of Amelia's hands, his voice steady and sure. "Amelia, I can't promise I'll remember every moment we share together. My memory is imperfect, and that's something I've had to accept. But I can promise that every moment with you matters to me, remembered or not. I promise to show up every day and choose you, over and over again. I promise to build a life with you that's full of love and laughter and purpose. I promise to be your partner in every sense of the word. And I promise that if I ever lose my memory again, I'll fall in love with you a third time, because you're that incredible." Amelia was crying before she even started her own vows. She took a shaky breath and began. "Preston, loving you has been the greatest adventure of my life. You challenged me to be patient when I wanted to rush, to have faith when everything seemed impossible. You showed me that love isn't just about shared history. It's about choosing each other every single day. It's about building something real and lasting together. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, and your biggest supporter. I promise to create beauty in your life, just like you've created purpose in mine. And I promise that no matter what challenges come our way, we'll face them together." They exchanged rings, simple platinum bands that matched, and when Marcus pronounced them married, Preston pulled Amelia into a kiss that was both tender and passionate, full of promise for their future. The reception was joyous. They'd hired a DJ who played everything from classical to hip-hop, and Preston surprised everyone by actually being a decent dancer. Jamal and several other kids from the youth center gave a toast that had everyone laughing and crying simultaneously. Sandra presented them with a photo book the kids had made, filled with pictures and notes about what Preston and Amelia meant to the community. "You're both making a difference," Sandra said. "Never forget that." Late in the evening, as the party was winding down, Preston pulled Amelia onto the dance floor for one last slow song. The sun had set, and the rooftop was lit with string lights and candles, creating a magical atmosphere. "Have I told you that you're the most beautiful bride I've ever seen?" Preston asked. "Only about 15 times today," Amelia said, smiling, "but feel free to keep going. You're stunning, absolutely stunning." Preston pulled her closer. "And you're mine, my wife." "Your wife," Amelia repeated, loving the sound of it. "How does it feel?" "Like coming home," Preston said simply. "Like everything in my life led to this moment." They swayed to the music, wrapped up in each other, oblivious to the remaining guests and the city stretching out below them. Amelia rested her head on Preston's shoulder and felt complete contentment wash over her. "Hey," Preston said softly, "I just remembered something." Amelia lifted her head to look at him. "What?" "The first time we danced, at that charity gala where we met. They were playing something classical and I asked you to dance even though I'm terrible at it. You said yes, and I stepped on your feet at least 3 times. 4 times, Amelia corrected, smiling. But who's counting? I remember how nervous I was, Preston continued. And how you laughed instead of getting annoyed. I remember thinking that anyone who could find humor in having their feet trampled deserved a second date. And here we are, Amelia said. Married, Despite your terrible dancing. Despite a lot of things, Preston agreed. He cupped her face gently. I'm so grateful for your patience, your love, your unwavering belief that we could make this work. I never doubted us, Amelia said. Even when things were hardest, I knew we'd find our way back to each other. We found our way forward, Preston corrected. Which is even better. They kissed, slow and sweet, as the last song ended and their new life together began. A year later, Amelia sat in their backyard garden, her hands resting on her rounded belly, watching Preston teach a group of kids from the youth center how to properly plant tomatoes. He was patient and encouraging, just like he'd always been, and the kids responded to his genuine interest in their success. Mr. Z, is it true you're having a baby? One of the kids asked. It's true, Preston confirmed, grinning. In about 2 months. Are you scared? Another kid asked. Preston considered the question seriously. A little. Being a parent is a big responsibility, but I'm mostly excited. My wife and I have been preparing, reading books, taking classes, and I have a good example to follow. My own parents taught me a lot about what matters. Amelia smiled at his answer. They'd found out about the pregnancy 3 months ago, and Preston had been simultaneously terrified and thrilled. He'd immediately started researching everything about babies, creating spreadsheets about nursery requirements and attending every doctor's appointment with Amelia. What if I don't remember? Preston had asked one night, his hand on her belly. What if something happens and I lose memories of our baby's childhood? Then we'll take lots of photos and videos, Amelia had said calmly. We'll document everything. But Preston, you can't live your life afraid of what might happen. You have to trust that we'll handle whatever comes. He'd nodded, accepting her wisdom as he often did. Preston had regained several more memories over the past year, but large gaps remained. He'd accepted that some things might never come back, and he'd stopped trying to force it. Instead, he focused on the present and future. Now, watching him with the kids, Amelia felt overwhelmingly grateful for their journey. Yes, the accident had been traumatic. Yes, they'd lost things that could never be fully recovered, but they'd also gained something precious. They'd proven that their love was strong enough to rebuild, to start fresh, to choose each other again and again. Preston finished the planting lesson and came to sit beside Amelia on the garden bench. He placed his hand over hers on her belly, and they felt the baby kick. Strong kicks, Preston observed, just like her mom. Or him, Amelia reminded him. They'd chosen not to find out the gender, wanting to be surprised. Or him, Preston agreed. He leaned over and kissed her temple. I love you. I love you too, Amelia said. And I'm so glad I get to do this with you. Build a family, create a life, grow old together. Speaking of growing old, Preston said with a mischievous grin, I've been thinking we should expand the garden. Add a play area for the baby, maybe a sandbox and one of those little playhouses. You want to build a playhouse? Amelia asked, amused. I want to build a lot of things for our kid, Preston said seriously. A playhouse, a treehouse when they're older, maybe a basketball hoop. I want to create spaces where they can grow and explore and feel safe. You're going to be an amazing father, Amelia said, tears pricking her eyes. Pregnancy had made her emotional, but this was genuine sentiment. We're going to be amazing parents, Preston corrected. Together. The baby kicked again, as if in agreement, and they both laughed. As the sun set over their garden, painting everything in golden light, Amelia reflected on how far they'd come. From the hospital room where Preston didn't recognize her to this moment of perfect contentment, they'd traveled an incredible distance. Some love stories were simple, but theirs was extraordinary. It was a story of resilience and faith, of choosing love even when it would have been easier to walk away. It was a story of falling in love not once but twice, proving that the best relationships weren't built on memory alone, but on conscious choice and daily commitment. 2 months later, at 3 in the morning, their daughter entered the world. Preston was there, holding Amelia's hand, coaching her through contractions and crying when he heard his baby's first cry. "She's perfect," Preston whispered, holding his daughter for the first time. The baby was tiny and red and wrinkled, and Preston looked at her like she was the most miraculous thing he'd ever seen. "She has your nose," Amelia observed, exhausted but happy. "Poor kid," Preston joked, but his eyes never left his daughter's face. "Hi, sweetheart. I'm your dad. I'm going to do my best to be worthy of you." They'd named her Diana Rose Zimmerman, after Preston's mother and the flowers in their first garden together. Diana immediately proved to be a handful, with strong lungs and definite opinions about when she wanted to eat and sleep. Preston threw himself into fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to everything else. He changed diapers, handled 3 a.m. feedings, and could be found regularly singing off key lullabies while walking Diana around their house. He documented everything, filling photo albums and digital storage with pictures and videos and notes about Diana's development. "I'm not taking any chances," Preston explained to Marcus during a visit when Diana was 2 months old. "If something happens, if I lose more memories, I want to be able to remember her, to remember this." "Nothing's going to happen," Marcus said, but his expression was understanding. "But even if it did, you'd still be a great dad. That's not about memory, it's about showing up." Preston had mastered the art of showing up. He was there for every milestone, every doctor's appointment, every difficult night. He and Amelia worked as a team, supporting each other through the exhaustion and joy of new parenthood. One evening, when Diana was 6 months old, Amelia found Preston in the nursery holding their daughter while she slept. He had tears on his face. "What's wrong?" Amelia asked, concerned. "Nothing," Preston said quickly. "Everything's right. I was just thinking about how lucky I am. About how this beautiful little person exists because you didn't give up on us. If you'd walked away after the accident, which you would have had every right to do, Diana wouldn't be here. This life wouldn't exist." Amelia moved to join them, wrapping her arms around Preston from behind. "But I didn't walk away, and she's here, and we have this beautiful life together." "I know," Preston said. "I just wanted to make sure you know how much it means to me, how much you both mean to me." "We know," Amelia assured him. "We definitely know." As Diana grew, Preston's memories continued to return in fragments. He remembered their first trip together, a weekend in Vermont. He remembered a particularly bad fight they'd had about his work hours and how they'd resolved it. He remembered the moment he decided to propose the first time, sitting in traffic after a site visit, and suddenly knowing with complete certainty that Amelia was the one. But the memories didn't matter as much anymore. They were nice when they came, like gifts, but Preston had built such a rich present that the past felt less essential. He had a wife who loved him, a daughter who thought he hung the moon, a career that fulfilled him, and a community he'd helped build. His life was full and meaningful, with or without complete memories. Diana's first birthday party was held in their backyard garden, which had expanded significantly since they'd moved in. The youth center kids came, along with family and friends from work. Jamal, now in his second year of college, gave a toast about family being more than blood, about how Preston and Amelia had shown him what it meant to build a life of purpose and love. Preston stood with Amelia, watching their daughter smash cake into her face with gleeful abandon, and felt complete contentment. "Happy?" Amelia asked, leaning against him. "Deliriously," Preston confirmed. He turned to look at her, this woman who had changed his life in every possible way. Thank you. For what? For being patient. For loving me when I couldn't remember why you should. For giving us a second chance. For creating this." Preston gestured at the party, the garden, their life together. "You created this too," Amelia reminded him. "We built it together." "Together," Preston agreed. He kissed her softly, mindful of their audience but unable to resist. Always together. 5 years after the accident, Preston stood in front of a crowd at a charity gala, preparing to give a speech. The event was raising money for the youth center, and as one of the major donors, he'd been asked to speak. Amelia sat in the audience, beautiful in a dark green dress, holding 4-year-old Diana on her lap. "5 years ago, I had an accident that changed my life," Preston began. "I lost memories, including 3 years of my relationship with my wife. In a lot of ways, I lost myself. But I also gained something invaluable. I gained perspective on what really matters." He paused, looking directly at Amelia. "My wife could have walked away. I wouldn't have blamed her. But she stayed. She helped me rebuild my life, not by trying to force me to remember the past, but by helping me create a meaningful present. She showed me that love isn't just about shared history. It's about showing up every day and choosing each other." Preston shifted his focus to the broader audience. "The youth center operates on the same principle. We show up for these kids every day. We choose to invest in their futures, not because we'll necessarily be there to see how they turn out, but because it's the right thing to do. Because creating opportunities for others is what gives our own lives meaning." He went on to talk about specific success stories, about kids who'd gone to college, started businesses, become teachers and nurses and engineers. He talked about the importance of community investment and sustainable development. But he kept coming back to the theme of choice, of showing up, of building something meaningful together. When he finished, the audience gave him a standing ovation. But Preston only had eyes for Amelia, who was crying and smiling simultaneously. After the speech, she came to find him. "That was beautiful," Amelia said. "It was true," Preston replied. He scooped Diana into his arms. "Hey, princess, did Daddy do okay?" "You talked a lot," Diana observed with typical 4-year-old honesty. Preston laughed. "I did. Sorry about that. Can we get ice cream now?" Diana asked hopefully. "Absolutely," Preston agreed. He looked at Amelia over their daughter's head. Ice cream," Amelia confirmed. They left the gala early, stopping at their favorite ice cream place in Brooklyn. Diana got chocolate with sprinkles, making a spectacular mess. Preston and Amelia shared a sundae, sitting close together in the booth while Diana entertained them with elaborate stories about her imaginary friend. "This is perfect," Preston said quietly. "Messy ice cream and nonsensical stories." Amelia teased. "Family," Preston clarified. "This, right here, this is everything." Amelia rested her head on his shoulder. "It really is." That night, after Diana was asleep, Preston and Amelia sat in their garden under the stars. It had become their favorite ritual, these quiet moments together after their daughter went to bed. "I was thinking," Preston said, "about Diana, about giving her a sibling." Amelia turned to look at him. Yeah, I mean, if you want to. I know pregnancy wasn't easy and 4 years old is a big gap, but I love being a dad. I love our family. And I think Diana would be an amazing big sister." Amelia smiled. "I've been thinking the same thing. I didn't want to pressure you with everything you've had to adjust to, but yes, I'd love to have another baby with you." Preston pulled her close, kissing her thoroughly. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Amelia said against his lips. "Always and forever." 18 months later, their son was born. They named him Marcus Alexander Zimmerman, after Preston's best friend and Amelia's father. Diana took her role as big sister very seriously, always wanting to help with the baby. Preston approached fatherhood the second time with more confidence but no less intensity. He knew the sleepless nights were temporary, that the tiny baby would grow quickly. He savored every moment, even the difficult ones. "You're a natural at this," Amelia said one night, watching Preston rock Marcus to sleep while simultaneously reading a bedtime story to Deanna. "I have a good partner," Preston replied. "Makes all the difference." The years flowed by full and rich. Deanna started school, showing an early interest in science and building things. Marcus was a calm, easy baby who grew into a cheerful toddler. Preston's company continued to thrive, with Amelia as a regular consultant on green space design. They bought a weekend house in the Catskills, creating a space where their family could escape the city and enjoy nature. Preston's memories continued to return sporadically. He remembered the first time he told Amelia he loved her. He remembered meeting her parents. He remembered holidays and birthdays and ordinary moments that had somehow become significant. But he'd stopped treating the memories as essential. They were bonuses, pleasant surprises, but not necessary for his happiness. One evening, 10 years after the accident, Preston and Amelia celebrated their anniversary. They'd gotten a sitter and gone to dinner at a fancy restaurant, dressing up and pretending to be sophisticated adults instead of exhausted parents. 10 years, Amelia said, raising her wine glass. "Well, technically 13 if you count the years before the accident." "I count them," Preston said. "Even if I don't remember all of it, those years happened. They shaped who we are." "They did," Amelia agreed, "but I'm grateful for the years after too. For getting to fall in love with you twice. Not many people can say that." Preston reached across the table to take her hand. "You know what's crazy? I think I love you more now than I did before the accident. Not because the old love wasn't real, but because this love is so intentional. Every day I wake up and choose you. Every day I see who you are and fall a little more in love." Amelia's eyes filled with tears. "That's the most romantic thing you've ever said to me." "I'm just getting started," Preston promised. "I plan to spend the rest of my life finding new ways to tell you how much you mean to me." They finished dinner and walked through the city, hand in hand, just like they used to before kids and mortgages and all the beautiful complications of life. They ended up at the Brooklyn Bridge, where Preston had proposed the second time. "This place is special to us," Preston said, looking out at the water. "Very special," Amelia agreed. "I remembered something earlier today," Preston said quietly. "The first proposal, I remembered everything. How nervous I was, how I'd rehearsed this whole speech but forgot it all the moment I saw your face. How you said yes before I even finished asking. How we stood here for hours just holding each other and looking at the city." Amelia squeezed his hand. "It was perfect." "It was," Preston agreed. "But this time was perfect too. Both proposals, both versions of us, both moments, they're all part of our story." "Our very complicated, beautiful story," Amelia said. "The best story I know," Preston said. He turned to face her fully. "Thank you for not giving up on us, on me. I know it wasn't easy." "You're worth it," Amelia said simply. "You've always been worth it." They stood on the bridge as the city lights twinkled around them, two people who had found each other twice, who had built a life full of love and purpose and meaning. The accident had taken things from them, but it had also given them something precious. Proof that their love could survive anything, that they would choose each other again and again in every version of their lives. Years later, when Deanna was in college and Marcus was in high school, Preston sat in his home office looking through old photo albums. Amelia found him there, surrounded by memories. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Looking back," Preston said, "at everything we've built." Amelia sat beside him, looking at the photos. Their wedding, Deanna as a baby, Marcus's first birthday, Family vacations and holidays and ordinary moments that had been captured and preserved. "We've had a good life," Amelia observed. "The best life," Preston corrected, "and it's not over yet. We've got years ahead of us." "What do you want to do with those years?" Amelia asked. Preston considered. "More of this. More family dinners and terrible action movies and Sunday mornings in the garden. More projects together, more adventures, more moments just sitting quietly with the person I love most in the world." "That sounds perfect," Amelia said. "It does, doesn't it?" Preston closed the photo album and turned to Amelia. "You know what the best part is? Even if I lost my memory again tomorrow, I'd still fall for you, because you're that incredible. You're that worth loving. You're not allowed to lose your memory again," Amelia said firmly. "Once was enough for both of us." "Deal," Preston said, pulling her close. "No more memory loss. Just us, growing old together, watching our kids build their own lives, creating more memories." "More memories," Amelia echoed. "All of them with you." They sat together in the quiet office, surrounded by evidence of their life together, and felt nothing but gratitude. Their love story hadn't been simple or straightforward. It had been complicated and challenging and absolutely worth every moment. They had chosen each other not once but twice, building a love that was strong enough to survive anything. And in the end, that was what mattered most. Not perfect memories or an easy path, but the conscious choice to love each other every single day. That was their happily ever after, and it was more than either of them had ever dared to hope for.